Hello, and welcome to episode number 21 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim, and today we're talking about Lord of the Rings, the card game.
All right, so I know we've brought up this topic. We've brought this game up before.
Yeah.
But we always talk about card games.
Yeah.
I don't want to put people off by that either. You know, we Jim and I were just talking about how we are card gamers. We love card games. That's just what we gravitate towards. But we don't want that to be a turnoff for people, right? We are not opposed to any other board games or any other games in general. It's just
some.
What?
Some games I might really not like. But that's a different reason.
That's another episode.
Yeah, that's a different reason. Card games I don't like, or games I don't like to play.
That's actually a good episode topic. Games we don't like to play. Specific and general. Yeah. But all that to say, we really do we find ourselves gravitating all the time towards card games. Yeah. We really enjoy them. See our last episode, and we literally talked all about that, right? Yeah. So today we wanted to talk about Lord of the Rings, the card game, the living card game.
Oh man, that's so good.
We had a recent gaming session where we played the first scenario from the core set called Passage Through Mirkwood. If you check out our YouTube channel, that episode will most likely go live sometime next week. So got to put got to edit that so we can show that to you guys. I'm really excited, but we had a fun time.
Ooh,
so that was our second time ever playing the game.
I don't even want to give any spoilers. But
second
time.
Yeah. And, we are not gonna talk specifics,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But what we are gonna talk about is just the general overview of the game, kind of what to expect, kind of what the game's about, and then just give you our kind of our ideas and what we thought and our feelings about the game in general. Yeah. So basically what Lord of the Rings, the card game is it is a living card game from Fantasy Flight Games. And actually they recently just had their 10-year anniversary for the game.
It's been that long.
It's really been that long. But you know what, dude? We just started playing this game and it's been out that long. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. The first time we played it is the first time I really ever saw the game.
Yeah.
So, and I had a blast since then.
That's great. Yeah. It's crazy to think about. So what the game is like we said, it is a living card game from Fantasy Flight Games. Now, living card game, as you know, we've mentioned before, is a trademark term by Fantasy Flight. Essentially, what it means is it is an expandable card game by definition. Which essentially, what an expandable card game is if you buy the box, right, for Lord of the Rings, if you buy the core set, you will have all of the cards in the core set. Right, so it's not a TCG or a CCG where you have to go out and buy booster packs to get the card. So it's a randomized set, right? If you go buy booster packs, if you
it's gambling.
Basically, it's basically legal gambling.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So, and that's why when I first found out about these kinds of games, I was immediately put onto them, and I'm like, okay, this as a concept is so much more appealing, I feel like, to players in general, just because, if you buy the box, you already have everything. You don't need to go out and spend a bunch of money to hopefully you get the cards that you want from the set. But you really just buy the set and you have all the cards, so you're good to go. You don't need to spend a bunch of money.
Someone we actually had on the podcast before was their preferred model for card games. So
and
there's only one person we had on the podcast.
So, but since I found out about those kinds of games, I'm like, okay, why don't more people make more games like this? I mean, I think from a developer standpoint, they're not as lucrative, right? So normally I say normally, with all the experience that we have, right? But in a lot of designers that I've heard who have gone into this type of model, the reason they've done so is specifically because they want their players to have access to all the cards immediately.
Yeah.
The one person that I'm thinking of is Isaac Vega, who was the designer, the lead designer, I believe, for Ashes Reborn.
Okay.
Right? So I listened to an interview that he did, can't remember with whom, but he was kind of talking about his upbringing and kind of how he got into tabletop. And then when he went to design the game, the biggest reason he went for designing it as an expandable card game was so the players of the game would immediately have access to all the cards. And they didn't need to worry about spending all this money to be competitive, because that's another thing too.
Or need to worry about the overprice on the secondary market.
Right, exactly.
So if you really wanted specific cards out there, Magic cards out there cost in the hundreds easily. Same with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon.
Yeah. So listening to designers talk about that, I think Isaac Vega, like I just mentioned, but then also Andrew Navarro with Earthborn Rangers, another similar concept. When I hear them talk about it, it's very appealing and intriguing to me, because I'm like, look, these guys, these designers, they clearly have a vision for what they want their game to be. And I immediately respect them because they are seeking out their vision, right? And putting that vision into the core design of their game.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I think it's great. And it's worked out. It worked out for Lord of the Rings again, all 2 times that we've played it, right? And that's why I'm so excited for Earthborn Rangers, but also Ashes Reborn. There's so many games that we're just like, we cannot wait to really dive into.
I've played Ashes a couple times, normally with like 4 people, and we're all really learning the game.
Yeah.
But it tends to be every single person has enjoyed themselves.
Yeah.
And pretty much they're always Magic players that I'm playing the game with.
Right.
But bringing them into a completely different thing, they're like, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, okay. So, we recently got off another session of Lord of the Rings, right? Awesome. Okay. So if you're not familiar, so essentially what Lord of the Rings, the card game is, it brings the Lord of the Rings experience to the table, to a card game.
Oh, yeah.
So essentially what you're doing is you have your groups of heroes. So it can be played one player. It can be played one player up to, I think, like 4 players-ish around.
Okay. Sounds about right.
Yeah, normally is I think what they try and say it's for. And then so each player, your deck essentially is led by 3 heroes. Okay. And so you take your 3 heroes, you pick the heroes that you want to lead your deck, and then you build your deck around them. Okay. So the times that we've played Lord of the Rings, we've just taken the starter decks from the core set, the core box, and we've gone from there.
Yep.
And those still provide really, really enjoyable experiences. All right. So one of the biggest, I guess this is very similar to all card games, is the spheres of influence. It's essentially their colors. All right. So for Lord of the Rings, there's 4 different spheres of influence, or 4 different colors. Okay. You have lore, which is green. Lore, you know what? I really wish I had. Can you actually grab that?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to pull out the rule book here, and we're just going to actually go through what the Learn to Play says about the. Don't you love those sounds? Yeah, I saw a video. If you didn't watch, Jim just put the box back on, and if you've ever taken a board game box off and put it back on, it toots.
I was gonna say, if you've ever taken a toot, you know the noise.
Yeah, you know what we're talking about. So now I just here we go. All right, here we go. Spheres of influence. All right, so you've got 4 different spheres of influence. Lore, which is green. The sphere of lore emphasizes the potential of a hero's mind, particularly that hero's wisdom, experience, and specialized knowledge. So lore is essentially the support color for the game.
Yes.
All right, now you have leadership, which is purple. So leadership is more the all-around sphere of influence. So they say leadership. The sphere of leadership emphasizes a hero's charisma and influence, particularly a hero's potential to lead, inspire, and command both allies and other heroes. So if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings, the universe, then that makes sense that Aragorn from the base set is a leadership character. All right, so next we have spirit, which is blue. The sphere of spirit emphasizes the strength of a hero's will, particularly that hero's determination, resilience, courage, loyalty, and heart. So spirit is more about questing, right? So they're about advancing the quest deck. Okay, and we'll get into that here in a minute. Tactics is red. Tactics is Jim's favorite color, the color combination or the sphere of influence for Lord of the Rings. You can probably guess what tactics is all about.
It's red.
Exactly. The sphere of tactics emphasizes a hero's martial prowess, particularly that hero's combat effectiveness and tactical mastery.
Yes.
So they are all about the combat.
Yes.
All about combat.
Yes.
And yes, they are very, very good at combat, which we've learned.
Yeah, they're really good.
It was really good. So we're not even going to get no spoilers, but the tactics is really good. All right. So to start the game, you've got your 3 heroes. Mm-hmm. You build your deck around your heroes, and each hero is within a different sphere of influence. One of the interesting things actually about this game is the way resources work. Mm-hmm. So the way resources work is through each turn, each hero, which again, you have 3 heroes, they each have their own separate resource pool. Okay. So now each hero is a certain color. Okay. So if you built your deck around 2 different colors, let's say 2 of your heroes are green, and then you have 1 hero that's blue, let's say. Okay. Each card, and again, we're still very early getting into this game. I'm assuming there's multicolor cards. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. I don't know. Okay. But each card has a specific color, okay? Or it's a neutral color. So if a card is a specific color, so if you have a green card, okay, you can only pay for that card's costs with resources from a hero's pool who matches that color.
Yep.
Right? So if your hero is green, okay, their resources can go to pay towards green cards. Okay. It's not like, let's say you have a card that costs 4 and it is 4 green. Okay. Let's say you have 1 hero that's green, but he only has 3 resources, and you have a red hero that has 2 resources. You can't pay for that card because all 4 resources have to come from a green hero.
Yeah, that's really the only downside that I've noticed about the game.
So far.
When you start getting into the more constructed list and you're not playing a single color, you're like, oh, this is a really good card in blue, but I only have 1 character that is a blue resource.
One thing that I'm very interested as we go through our journey with all of these games, with all these games, like Lord of the Rings, okay, is, I want to be talking about them on the podcast. I want to be playing them on streams and videos. Mm-hmm. And then as we go through and we learn more and more and more, go back to these previous episodes and then be like, wow, were we wrong? Or see how right we were. Excuse me. Sorry.
True.
So I'm really interested to see how well or badly these age. So
I was gonna say most YouTubers or podcast people will be like, oh yeah, I'm always embarrassed to go watch the starting things. It's like, what was I talking about, and where was my head? And,
I will be interested to see, because again, like it's cool. I think watching the journey for people, like see how they go through these journeys, like especially with these games. I think it's really, really neat and really, really cool. So, and honestly, and I know I feel like I bring up Earthborn Rangers now at least every episode, and that's fine because I'm very excited for this game. Actually, Team Covenant streamed Earthborn Rangers again today. Ooh. Yeah, so those. I'm never able to watch the entirety of those streams, so I've got those bookmarked.
Those tend to be a few hours.
Yeah, but they're always good. They are always. Zach and Steven do a fantastic job with those streams, so I love those guys. Keep guys, if you're watching it, which you're probably not, keep it up. You guys are doing awesome. So I'm going to be watching those for sure. But anyway. But what I was saying was, like, that's one reason I'm really looking forward to Earthborn, because again, I'm like, there's another game that I know we're going to be diving into. Yeah. Like, I want to be documenting our journey through the game, and because I feel like documenting our journey through the game really plays well with Andrew Navarro's like vision what he has for that game in particular. You know, maybe I'm crazy, but I think those match up kind of really, really, really well. So anyway, back to Lord of the Rings. So yeah, the resource costs for paying for cards is one interesting thing that we've kind of noticed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all right. So as opposed to paying for cards, right? You've got this quest deck. Okay. So your goal, so Lord of the Rings, so far that we can tell, is 100% cooperative. It's all about you're going through this journey. You're all going on this quest. So each session, essentially, you have a quest deck.
Yeah.
Right? And so what you're trying to do is you go through the deck. So again, it's very narrative based. It's very narrative driven. And, you know, I like taking these narrative experiences and really getting into them. I really love reading those and just really
flavor text is really
really
nice.
putting my mind just getting into the space, getting into that universe. For me, I love Tolkien, and I love the Lord of the Rings universe.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings are definitely my favorites. They're my favorite movie series. So I love the Lord of the Rings. I love the Hobbit series as well. They're just fantastic movies, and I really just I love watching that on screen and just the beauty of that. I mean, some of it's fake, some of it's not. A lot of it's not.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it was just gorgeous.
Yeah, depending on if you're watching Hobbit or
Yes.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Right. So I like getting into that mindset. So when we played this the other day, I'm just totally getting into it in my head, just really putting us there.
Yeah.
And then as I'm reading through the quest cards, I'm like really getting into it, just really enjoying that as we go through it.
Because you also really think about it in terms of your characters as well. So like depending on if you're playing red or green or blue, and you know, you have the different characters, you're like in the mindset of whoever it is, or you're pretending to be that person in your head and slaying random creatures and whatnot.
Okay, so one thing we will say, okay.
Oh man.
So if you've ever seen, I'm assuming you've seen the Lord of the Rings movies, okay? So the play between Gimli and Legolas in the movie is awesome.
Yeah.
Legolas, for me, is one of my favorite characters in all of the Lord of the Rings series. So I love Legolas, okay? But the play between Legolas and Gimli is they always have a competition.
Yeah.
So who's gonna slay the most enemies, essentially, or orcs, right? Normally it's orcs, but they don't limit themselves to orcs.
Yeah.
So I believe this scene was in the Two Towers.
I believe so.
And I can't remember the name of the battle. Or the location of the battle. I have it visualized in my head.
I want to say like Helm's Deep, but I don't think
Yes,
it
Battle
is.
of
It
Helm's Deep. It
Okay.
is Helm's Deep.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It is Battle of Helm's Deep. All right. So Legolas takes out so the one actually the line that Gimli says is not from the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Oh yeah, that was from the third one.
The third one,
yes,
The Return of the King. All right, so
I was going to say Return of the Jedi, but that's a different thing.
So the Battle of Helm's Deep from the Two Towers is one of the great battles, battle sequences in cinema. I think. Okay. However, from Return of the King, and see now I can't even remember the name of that one. It's not Rohan.
I don't believe
I can't remember.
But it's the people with the elephants.
Yes,
I forget that one.
Yeah. Oh man! See,
I
for
don't
being
remember.
Lord of the Rings fans, like we're really.
It's been a while since I like really looked into it.
Yeah, got into the lore. But anyway, so Legolas takes down a giant war elephant.
Yeah.
And so Gimli goes to him and is like, "It only counts as one."
Yeah, it still only counts as
Still
one.
only counts as
Except
one.
that elephant had a lot of people on it. That should
Yes.
cause way more than one.
But he took out all the people before he took out the elephant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. Oh yeah, and he was
'Cause,
counting.
he was
like
counting.
41, 42.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's one of my favorite moments in all those movies.
Yeah. The thing I was thinking about with Helm's Deep was when Gimli's talking to Aragorn. He's like, "You're gonna have to toss me."
Yeah. Or when Legolas slides down the stairs
on the
shield.
Oh man, that was so cool.
Like Lord of the Rings is like every fantasy nerd's like kind of dream. Where it's just awesome. It's so
next
cool.
time I'm playing D&D as a ranger, I'm having a shield on me. I'm like, are there stairs around?
If I'm in that session, I'm just gonna say it only counts as one. Okay, so anyway, in our session, Jim was able to have Legolas and Gimli in his party. So Legolas and Gimli were both heroes for his party, and so he did drop the it only counts as one towards the end. On a decent sized monster. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a fun game. I can't wait for you guys to be able to see.
Oh yeah. I can't wait for everybody to see that. And then honestly, really, I can't wait for everybody to see that, and then go on that journey through Lord of the Rings with us. Because it's gonna be awesome. Because that game, man, it was so much fun. So this, and then I'm also thinking about Arkham Horror as well. There's so many great expandable card games. And then we have Marvel Champions, but we're not talking about any of those. We're talking about Lord of the Rings right now. One of the great things that we've noticed, again in only 2 play sessions, is the cooperability, if that's even a word.
The coapability.
Like what I've noticed is we work very well together. Okay, and that has multiple definitions, I guess here. But we found that the decks, and again, we were only just playing the starter decks, they really do work well. They worked well together. I did not feel as if I was on my own and you were on your own and we were just doing our own things, but we still had the similar objective. I felt like we really were working together to accomplish a certain goal, because in some cooperative games, that's really how it tends to feel sometimes is, okay, the game comes out and says, okay, here is your main objective, and this is an objective that everyone at the table has to overcome together. But in actuality, what it feels like is you have 3 different players, but each different player is going about the objective their own way, and they're not really working together. It's just they're each individually working toward a similar goal and objective. And so at the end, we're just totaling up our points, and maybe we got there. But this game really felt like we were a team and we were working together to accomplish this goal.
Yeah, because it has the different aspects in the game where some people are really good at questing, and you have to get the quest to win the game, but then you also need to be able to control the creatures that come out of the encounter deck as well. And whatever other tricks may come out as well. So
okay, so you actually brought up a good thing that I haven't even talked about yet, is the encounter deck. Okay, so essentially, we talk about working together to complete the quest, right? So you've got the quest deck, which is normally a couple of cards. In the first scenario, it's like 3 cards. That's actually 4. 4 total cards. But when you go into the third objective, the second one says you pick a random third card.
For and then you get rid of the other one.
Right, and then you get rid of the other one. Outside of that, you have your encounter deck, which the encounter deck, normally it says, okay, for these objectives, you have to grab these sets of cards, put them together, and they form the encounter deck for this scenario. So for the first scenario, you had to choose, I believe it's like 3 different sets, shuffle them together, and they form the encounter deck. So within the encounter deck, you have different cards. You have locations, you have creatures, you have treacheries, and then you have like conditional attachments, essentially. And all of these are negative effects, mostly, that are trying to hinder you from completing your objective. Okay. And so the way the locations work, actually the way everything works, is you've got different zones, okay, within the game, right? So you have your quest deck, which you set aside. Then your treachery deck. And then when you draw cards from the encounter deck, it's called, I believe it's the staging. I'm actually going to turn this over and look. During the quest phase, so the round, I'm actually gonna go through the round overview here real quick. So each round, okay, it takes this setup. There's about 7 different steps. Okay, you have your resource phase. During your resource phase, you gain your resources and then you draw your card. So gaining resources, you put 1 resource token on each hero. All right, so you draw your card, then you move on to your planning phase. Planning phase is essentially when each player plays their cards. You're planning for the upcoming quest that you're going to go on. Okay, you're trying to see what's in your hand, and then you're kind of planning your objective, your strategy of how you're going to go about. We have this task, this quest that is in front of us. How are we, as a group, as a team, going to go about handling that? Okay, so once that's complete, then you move on to the quest phase. Now, within the questing phase, there's 3 different steps within the questing phase. You have your commit characters, so you choose which characters are going to essentially go on a quest. I think of the meme, we're going on an adventure from The Hobbit, right? From the Hobbit movie.
Yeah.
Right, so that's really what you're doing here is you're deciding who's going to go on the adventure now.
You know what I was just thinking about as well? So like I'm kind of thinking about it in terms of D&D a little bit as well.
Okay.
So like when we're doing the questing phase, we're
like,
sending
this is like
people,
D&D, the card game.
Yeah, so like we're sending people, or like we're turning them sideways to commit them to the quest. And then from there, you're revealing cards off the top. Maybe it's a creature, maybe it's a location. Right. It's also like you're sending these people scouting ahead to where, which then later comes the battle phase. And it's like, well, now we have our other troops in the back line getting ready for those new creatures that come out or whatever they come back with and be like, oh yeah, the creature's over there. Do you want to go fight it? Yeah. It's kind of like that.
That's I never thought about it like that.
I just thought about this.
That's actually a good that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So the questing phase, right? So Jim, perfect analogy for committing characters. Okay, so then when he talked about you revealing cards from the top of the encounter deck, that's that's staging. Okay, so once you decide, you commit your characters. Okay, they're going about they're doing recon. They're checking to see what's ahead.
We're scouting
ahead, and what you're actually doing is you have a certain value, okay, that you're trying to overcome. And that value is looking at a certain number of, I think it's a threat number that's within cards that are all in the staging area. So you have to commit a certain number of cards whose threat value is equal to or greater than that value. And with your characters, it's their willpower is what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So you look at your character's willpower, and you want your characters that you're committing to the quest, their willpower to be greater than or equal to, well, actually greater than, because if it's equal to, you don't advance anything. But if it's greater than, then you advance a number of quest counters that are equal to that difference. Okay. So that's what you're looking when you're deciding who you want to commit onto the quest. That's the value you're looking at. Okay. And so you make that determination before you reveal cards from the encounter deck to add to the staging area. So the cards that you add to the staging area, their value, their threat level value is added to that number. So you always have to keep that in the back of your mind when you're deciding which characters you essentially want to send on recon. All right, so that's staging. Once you add those cards to the staging area, and that's 1 per player during that phase, that's when you resolve the quest. Okay, so let's say we had a total of 8. All right, well, once the quest is resolved, we find out that the amount in the staging area is equal to 6. So now we have successfully quested by 2. So we have 2 quest encounters that tokens essentially that we can put on the quest deck. So we have successfully quested by 2 points essentially, and each quest has a certain number on it that you need to get in order to advance to the next card of the quest deck. Okay. Now, if there's a location in play, okay, that location will also have a quest number that you have to take care of first before successfully exploring the location. Okay, which we'll get into next. So next, after questing phase, is travel phase. So you can decide as a group, okay, your creatures or your allies and your heroes from your party have successfully quested. They've reconned and they've noticed there's some locations that we need to discover before we can successfully partake in this quest. So if there's locations,
we just found this secret hideout or something, a secret cave.
Because some locations will have positive effects that if you successfully explore a location, you get a positive effect. Some are a negative effect. They're a hindrance, okay? But now these locations cards, they also have a threat level that is impeding your ability to successfully quest. So what you have to do as a group, you have to determine, okay, this location card right now, it's in the staging area. So since it's in the staging area, it is negatively impacting our ability to successfully quest. So it's adding that value. Like let's say it's 3. It's adding 3 every turn that we have to overcome with the willpower of the heroes or allies in our party. So what you can do is you can decide to travel to that location. So if you travel to it, you take that location card from your staging area, and then you make that the active location. If it's the active location, once it's the active location, when you're doing your questing, okay, if you're successful in questing, you can put those location tokens on the location. And then once a location is successfully explored, then you can discard that location.
Yep.
Okay. So that's travel. And then next is the encounter phase. So
did we also say that it takes away the threat level of when we are doing the quest as well? I just didn't
active
remember.
location.
Yeah.
I don't think I pointed that out. Okay. So that is one benefit. That's why you'd want to remove the location from the staging area. Yeah. If your active location does not add its threat level to that threat when you are questing.
Yeah.
So that's why you'd want to. That's the positive effect of traveling to a location.
Yeah. Even if it's hindering you in some way, it's still probably better to get rid of it.
Right.
So.
Right. So after the travel phase, you have encounter. So that's when you are dealing with your creature engagements. Okay.
Yes.
So if you have creatures or enemies, right, that are in the staging area, okay, your heroes, some of them have recon, and they've noticed that there's some spiders or some orcs or some wolves that are waiting for you. That they're gonna ambush you. They want to take you out. So during the encounter phase is when you can decide. All right, we see them. Are we going to engage with them? Now, again, enemies have a threat level. Okay. Now, one of the things that is interesting is essentially it's another resource that needs to be managed is an individual player's threat. All right. So each player has a threat tracker, which if it gets to 50, you lose.
Yeah.
And so your starting threat is basically it's monitored by your heroes. Your heroes have a starting threat level.
Yep.
Excuse me.
All of your characters have a point value on them between like 8 and 12, I think.
Heroes.
Oh, yeah, my
just
bad.
Heroes, yes.
So your heroes have between 8 and 12, I think it is. And you add up those numbers for all 3 of them, and that's what your starting threat level is.
Yep. And so each turn, each round, that threat goes up by 1. So every round that goes up. So during your encounter phase, when you're doing your engagement checks, first becomes optional engagements. So you can decide if there's enemies in the staging area that may not necessarily engage you because their threat level is higher than what your threat is.
Yep.
So if an enemy's threat level is higher than yours, that enemy will not actively engage with you. The only way for you to engage with that enemy is for you to optionally choose to engage the enemy. So the optional engagements come before the engagement checks.
Yes.
So if you decide to not engage an enemy, then comes the point to where the game will check to see if that enemy engages with you anyway.
Yeah.
So again, you're making the choice. Do we want to remove these enemies from the staging area so we can successfully quest?
Yep.
And again, it's going to be situational depending on what the quest is. Do you have to get through the quest? Or maybe you're on the last quest and your whole goal now is to destroy a certain enemy. It's all dependent upon what the quest says. And so again, it's very narrative driven. It's very narrative based, which again, I really enjoy that type of game mechanic.
Oh yeah.
All right. So once you've encountered your enemies, okay, so your heroes, they have recon. They've successfully reconned and they found some enemies. Okay. And so you've decided, all right, so we've got a couple of enemies here. I see 2 orcs. We also see this wolf rider over here. Okay. All right. So we've got Gimli. All right, Gimli and Legolas, okay, they can take out those orcs, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now I don't know if they're gonna mandatorily. I don't know if they're really going to engage with us. So I think we kind of have
notice
the upper
us?
hand here. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Did
exactly.
they notice
Did they notice
us?
That's it. That's it. So that's what we're going to say. So for the engagement checks are going to be, did they notice us? So do we have the upper hand? I think at this stage of the game, we've got the upper hand. All right. So we've got the upper hand. All right, so we've got Gimli and Legolas over here. Okay, so you've got a character. Now, is he ready to engage? I think he's actually ready to engage because he just participated in some quest. He got some information for the quest. Okay, but now since he's got that information, he is now prepped and ready to go immediately into battle. Okay, because he's got some crazy ability that lets him do that. Okay, maybe that's awesome. Okay, so your characters, they're all ready to go. Well, all my heroes, they're kind of they've reconned, they've scouted ahead, and they've actually already provided your heroes with some added buff or benefit. So they are not prepared at this point to go into combat. So that means if you don't engage with these enemies, I think this one noticed us. So if you don't choose to engage him, he's going to come and attack us.
Yeah.
So we need to make a choice. Can you actively engage with all of them and actually defeat them all? And you know what? I think you can.
Yeah.
So I think what we do is just ambush all three of them, and then you choose to engage with each enemy, right?
I got it.
And that's essentially what you're doing in the encounter phase. Is you're determining who are we gonna take out of the staging area and then engage with them.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Again, all this can go on in your head because it's so cool. And that's it's tabletop, man.
And this is the second time we've played it.
Seriously. This is honestly though, I really think this is tabletop.
Yeah.
This is one of the amazing things about tabletop. And I think of my kids who are very imaginative.
Yeah.
This is an awesome hobby for kids to get into, that just let your imagination run wild.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So I love it. It's awesome.
It's play and pretend with numbers.
Yeah. Or cards or nothing.
Or cards
or
or
nothing.
whatever it is.
Yeah, or whatever.
Or you just play and pretend.
All right. So after the encounter phase, you have combat. So you're resolving your encounter. Yeah. So you choose to engage. Okay. So we've ambushed these three enemies. Okay. Now since we've ambushed them, we've engaged with them. They are now going to come at and attack us. Okay. Our shields are up. Are we going to let them attack us unimpeded, or are we going to try and set up some defenses? Well, I have a tree of a character here who's just going to eat up a ton of damage.
We got a big old tank.
We got a big tank who's just going to take all this damage, right? So we're going to choose to let these two attacks become undefended. Okay. Now, one thing you remember is for enemies, when they are attacking, they are dealt what's called a shadow card. So each card, not each card. Some cards from the encounter deck have what's called a shadow effect on them. So each enemy, when they are attacking, gets dealt a shadow card, period. They will get that a shadow card. Okay. When they attack, they draw that card, and then when their attack resolves, determine is it defended or is it not defended. Okay. Once you determine if you're defending it or not, you reveal that card that was drawn from the encounter deck. All you say is, does it have a shadow effect? If it has no shadow effect, the card gets discarded. If it does have a shadow effect, you resolve the shadow effect.
Yeah, sometimes they're pretty crazy.
Sometimes they are. The effect could be, the effect will say, does it checks if the attack is defended or not. If it is defended, then the defending player discards a card. If it's not defended, maybe it's you exhaust maybe a character or two.
Or it'll be +1 damage to the creature, or if it's not defended, +3 instead, which is pretty.
Again, we've only played this twice, and we've only seen a couple of shadow effects.
Yeah.
And
there's so many expansions.
There's a ton, dude. There's a ton.
It's ridiculous.
All right, so once the enemies have attacked, now it's the player's turn to attack.
Yes.
And if they are not turned sideways, if they're not exhausted, they get to attack. And we tell Gimli tells Legolas that's only one, only counts as one.
Only counts as
Only
one.
counts as one. So after combat, you go to the refresh phase. So after combat, every card that's been exhausted essentially stands up straight and gets ready for the next round. And then each player increases their threat, and then you pass the first player token, and then you start the round all over again.
You retreat back to camp.
Yep.
Or the town, wherever it is. Rest up. Be ready.
And get ready for the next one.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's essentially how the rounds work. It's very different. The first time that I played it, I was not used to something like this.
Oh yeah.
This round overview essentially.
Yeah.
I was very used to like Magic, where it's okay, go. Okay, you did your thing, move your step one, okay, next. Yeah, it's very main phase 1, combat, main phase 2, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
It's similar.
Order,
right.
But
and
there's
again,
no main phase 2.
Yeah. But again, being very strategic minded and strategic oriented, having something like this is very easy, because I like what I've been doing is I had this out in front of me. I would just go step by step. Okay, here's one. Okay, here's the resource phase. And I'm very particular, and I try and be very intentional. And I was literally, here's resource phase. Okay, we gain resources. Now we draw a card. Planning phase, because this is a very basic. I mean, this is like it says. This is just an overview.
Yeah.
We had a lot of questions about timing. Are there timing restrictions?
Wording on cards as well.
When can we activate these cards?
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was going through Arkham Horror, the card game, for the first time. Again, same thing. I had the overview in front of me. I was going through it, and then having questions. Okay, when can I play these cards? I have cards that can be activated. When can I activate them? And then again, going through the more advanced rules of, okay, here's actually the windows where each player has an opportunity to essentially respond.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, I think Magic has helped me very much in this, to where, I'm playing an instant speed card, the stack. Visualizing the stack has helped me just again not only visualize the rules being played out, but just made more sense. It's helped everything make more sense from Magic for me.
Yeah.
Like Arena has helped very well.
And sometimes it's a little bit of a hindrance as well, because there's sometimes we're playing these games and we're like, is there instant speed in this game? And when I saw Dan play one, I was like, oh, I guess these are instant speed. Let's play it. You know?
Yeah.
Or
because there was a time to where it's just action. Well, when can I take an action?
Yeah.
I think I can take it now. So we're just going to go ahead and do it. And I even said, like, we're going to do it like this now because we think this makes sense.
Yeah.
But we're going to make sure we go through these advanced rules and find out when are these player windows that we're able to actually activate. Because spoiler alert, I'm not even going to give anything out. But there was a time to where, since I was playing kind of more support role, and I was mostly focused.
I think we can say what colors we were playing.
Yeah, so I was playing green.
I was playing red.
Which, again, if you know us, it makes sense. But it's interesting, though, in Lord of the Rings, green is very different from green in Magic.
Yeah,
so
I love green in this game.
Yes.
Like, I love green in this game.
All support based. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
I've never played this kind of role, I guess, like in a game before, and it was really cool.
Dan, that's all I do in MMOs. I'm just support all day. That's partially why I was like, when Dan's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play green, I'm like,
no, come on. No. You wanted to play red. Come on.
Well, I mean, so when I first learned about what green was when it was support role, I'm like, I want to play a support role. But yeah, red was a blast.
Yeah. So there was a card, a hero, whose essentially the ability was you can pay a resource from their resource pool to heal 1 point of damage from another character, and it was limit once per round. Okay. So there was an interaction to where we were having to make a choice. We're like, okay, we're in the encounter. We were in combat, right?
Yes.
We're in combat, and we're like, okay, is this other character?
It was the quest. It was the quest time.
Yeah, that's right. That's when it was. We're like, okay, this character has a good amount of damage on him. Okay. I don't know if we want to risk going into questing because there was a card that was doing some damage, and we're like, we don't know if we want to risk doing that damage now. I don't know if I want to commit this character to this quest because they might die. Right. So then I'm like, all right, well, since I don't think we can actually do this at instant speed, and so when we say instant speed, normally like with Magic, is if there's an effect that's going off, it goes on the stack, and you can then respond to it. I don't think it works that way in this game, so I was like, all right, well, since we're wondering about that and we're concerned about it, let me actually activate that effect now beforehand. That way we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or Yu-Gi-Oh! Quick play and counter traps, for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players.
Yeah.
Because we're saying stuff for Magic.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I know nothing.
Spell speeds 2 or 3. All right, that's what we're that's what we're going on.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, that was what we did, because I'm like, I doubt there's like instant speed removal or effects essentially.
Yeah.
And that was when I even said, I'm like, what we need to do is I need to go and see where the actual player windows actually are of when you can actually activate these cards.
So it also makes sense because I actually had a card in my hand that stated the character gets +1 strength and +1 toughness until the end of the phase.
Okay.
So it makes, and this was an event card as well.
Now, so some of the event cards actually are more specific, and they say when the card can be played.
Okay.
So there's actually a card that I played that it was an event, but on the card it said quest event. It was either quest event or quest action. It said quest action, I believe. Okay. So the card type was event. Okay. So on the card text, right? There's bold when it has the actions.
Yes.
So it says like when you can essentially activate the card or play the card. And it said quest action in bold. So meaning you can play this only during the quest phase. And so now that I'm thinking about this, I'm assuming there's probably like a chart, right? Which says during the rounds, during these different phases, here are the actions or the timings when you can play actions during these phases. So that's why I'm thinking quest action. Okay, there's probably somewhere that says here during the quest phase, this is when you can take a quest action. It's my guess. So, and again, once we get into this more and really learn this more, we're probably going to come to find out.
Yeah.
So
exactly when we can trigger everything.
Right, exactly. So. Yeah, exactly. Because for me, I'm coming more from Magic where I know the templating and I know all the wording there. It's trying to translate all of that over into a new game for Lord of the Rings. And then when we do something else, it's learning all of that. And so like for me, it's like part of the joy is learning.
Yeah.
I like learning in general. And so that's why for me, I'm like, I enjoy learning new things, and then learning a system for me is very cool.
Yeah. Because in between like all of these games, there's things that are common comparisons between all of the different games like these.
Right.
But then there's the intricacies like we found out with restricted cards.
Yes.
As you were saying, and what was it, Marvel
Champions?
So Marvel Champion, you're only able to have one restricted card on your character.
Yeah, because restricted is normally a keyword, and they put restricted because the card is really good.
Yeah.
It's a really good like attachment, right? And so they'll have restricted on it. And my understanding was with Marvel Champions, you could only have one restricted card attached to characters at a time. Only
and that makes sense.
Yeah. And I could be wrong, but so if you know, let me know. But I'm pretty sure it was just one. And so that's where I was like, okay, Marvel Champions, it was one. There's no way it's more than one here. It's got to be just one. And then we looked into it.
Yeah.
So we looked into it was two.
Yeah, so we looked into it, and it was able to have two.
Yeah.
I could also see it being as this card is restricted specifically for that card. So you can't have two of these one axes on your character.
Yeah, like legendary or unique.
Yeah, exactly.
Unique, essentially, yeah. But they already have
which that's a different thing.
That's a different thing, and it's and
Well, that's
the way it works is essentially the same thing.
I was gonna say,
If it has that symbol on it,
Yeah.
that unique symbol,
Yeah.
there can only be one of those in play, period.
yeah.
Not
So that's
per
where I was
player.
saying it would be different because,
Yeah.
with restricted, say you had the sword on Gimli, but you could also have the exact same sword that is restricted on Legolas.
Right.
Or Legolas.
Right.
So,
But if it was unique,
Yes,
then
that's where
there
it'd
could
be
only
different.
be one of those in play.
Yes.
Yeah, at a time. Yeah. Yeah. So there are, and again, it's those intricacies that
Yeah.
you're learning as you go. And I like learning as you go. And honestly, like from a recording standpoint, like recording the journey, I like doing that and
Yeah.
keeping those things in because it's like,
Yeah.
look at us when we were playing this even just a month ago or 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It's cool. I was actually watching a Gary Vee. This is totally off topic, but it's kind of very similar. I was watching a Gary Vee video the other day. And I posted it to my Facebook, my personal Facebook. But it was Gary Vaynerchuk interacting with a fan of his. And basically he was like, this guy gets it. And basically what he was saying was, he's like, dude, I love your content. I've been listening to you for a long time now, but one thing I've realized is in putting out all this content, this is my legacy for my kids. Years down the line when I'm gone, yes, I'll be gone and I'll have the memories with my family. But if I have all this content, my kids are gonna be able to watch this stuff that I put out there. And I'm thinking about that. I'm like, we're playing games.
Yeah.
But like maybe years down the line, if my kids start watching this, they're like, they can still see me, watch me play games. They're still seeing, me doing something.
Yeah.
And it is still your legacy, So that's a challenge for me because it's like, this is being recorded, and if I know my kids or anybody's watching this, what this is my legacy. They're going to be seeing in me.
Yeah.
As like me laid bare, me as a human, right? I want to make sure that this is I am essentially being on my best behavior, essentially, but also being true to myself, right?
Yeah.
And being me, and that's a challenge. Like for me, that's a challenge. I don't know why I just thought of that, but I've been wanting to share. I've been wanting to share that for a while. To be honest with you, yeah. So, if you don't follow Gary V, you really need to. He's great.
Maybe he's watching this.
He's great. He's really great. Seriously, how did that come up?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it was awesome. I love Gary.
We'll find
V.
it out in
Yeah,
post.
I did really want to share that. So anyway,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was. I know it was just about going these journeys, and that we're just recording all this, and I think it's really cool. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. And even we don't even have that much content, out on YouTube. But even what we do is just, I enjoy doing it. I hope that everyone watching this really sees how much fun we're having. Because Jim, I'm having a ton of fun.
Yeah, I'd say, obviously some days are better than others,
Yeah, sure.
Especially certain Disney games. But yeah.
Am I going to win a game?
Dude, spoilers, man. The other one's coming out Monday.
Well, I did win one. The second one.
Oh
that we
yeah,
posted.
you won the important one.
Yeah.
I'm just like I don't care. Win.
That's right. You did let me win, didn't you?
Kind of, I guess.
You could have stopped me there.
Yeah.
You could have stopped me.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't, honestly.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So that was. Is there anything else you want to say about Lord of the Rings? I think we've covered it a lot.
If you guys have yet to play it, get the base box.
Yeah.
Try it out.
Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing.
Yeah, you can play it single player.
Yeah.
You totally can. The first time I actually played this game, I played it single player. I totally did it wrong. So, in combat, okay, when you're in combat, one of the, again, it's an intricacy. But what you do is you determine the enemies, they get to attack first, right? And so they do their attacks first, okay? Well, if you have 4 characters, okay, and let's say they're all able to attack. If you attack with all 4 characters on one enemy, each enemy has a defense value, like their shields, okay? What you're supposed to do is add up all of the attacking players' attacking strength that's attacking a single enemy.
Yeah.
So if 4 heroes or 4
It's
characters,
like they're teaming up.
right? If 4 characters are attacking one enemy and they each have an attack strength of 2, let's say, that's 8 total attack strength. And let's say the enemy has a shield or a defense strength of 2, okay, and they have a health of 4, okay. So that, in essence, that would be a total attacking strength of 8, okay, minus the 2. You take the 2 away for the defense strength, okay, and so that's 8 minus 2 is 6. So that's 6 total damage that are going through. So that would kill the enemy, okay, because the enemy has 4 HP, okay, and so you're dealing 6 total, so you're doing 2 more than what's necessary. So you defeat the enemy. The way I was doing it was I was resolving each combat individually.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if in that scenario, I would have done no damage because I was viewing it as 2 minus 2. Well, no damage gets through from that character.
2 minus 2 4 times.
Exactly. It's exactly what I was doing. And I'm like, dude, this is insane. This is dumb. But then I reread it and I'm like, I'm an idiot.
But we got to put the 2 minus 2 in parentheses just so you don't like times the 2 by 4 first. And then you have 2 minus 8.
Right. Yeah. So I totally did not do that the right way.
Yeah.
But again, I was learning it, right? I was learning the game. So, and sometimes that's
we all start somewhere.
You all start somewhere. So, all right. Well, is there anything else that you want? Any other thoughts that you had about Lord of the Rings?
I don't believe so. Other than it's definitely on my top 10.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I would I don't think I'd put it in top 5, but maybe if we had 4 people, it could potentially be top 5 playing with 4 people. That could be.
You've never played it with 4 people?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If we ever play it with 4 people, the amount of strategy that would then be going into that game could be a lot more crazy. So.
All right.
And a far more teamwork. Far more teamwork.
Oh yeah. What's interesting is, again, I already brought up Team Covenant, but they did a run through with Lord of the Rings from a more recent expansion. This is probably a few years ago with a couple of the designers. So I think they actually did a 5. They might have done a 4-player game.
Wow.
I think they did a 4-player game on camera. I'll have to find it and send it to you. I was actually watching it the other day because, again, I was wanting to learn more and more about the game. So I'll have to find that again and send it to you.
All right. Cool.
Anytime I find Covenant stuff, I mean, I waste. I say waste, but it's really not a waste from their content, because they put out really, really good content. So
plus, I mean, you're learning more things.
Yeah.
Whether it's
which we've talked about. Yeah, learning. It's all good. It's all good. So, all right. Well, before we go, we got another story from Drew.
Which one are we doing?
From Drew. All right. So we've got another one here.
Is it an MTG one?
We got another one. All right. So we've got an F&M story.
Oh,
got an F&M.
yes.
All right. I haven't even read this one yet.
Okay.
I've not read this one.
Okay.
So I think I just saw the title.
I was going to say, I
saw the title, and I did not read it. All right. So here we go. We've got another story here from Drew. All right. So this is an F&M story. Hey, guys. Here's a time from F&M. I had been getting sick of decks of my own, getting destroyed by everything around me. I was close to taking a nice long break from MTG when a friend of mine showed me Jank. Where were you when you first heard of Jank? The Jank deck, which I had taken on, was in Kaladesh Standard, based on artifacts. What this deck did was it discounted artifact cards, bounced them back to hand with Paradoxical Outcome, a card that bounced any number of artifacts back to hand, and then allowed me to draw that many cards to allow me to recast them. I would then use Aetherflux Reservoir to gain a ton of life after storming with artifacts, and then pay 50 life to deal 50 damage. Yep. On one of the second or third FNMs I had used this deck in a row, I had found an opponent who was new to the game at the time. I had finally found a deck that told me what my playstyle was in MTG, which would be Izzet colored playstyles. So an Izzet deck, okay?
Which is red and blue.
Red and blue, yep. This new player to the game during Kaladesh Standard would be playing a control deck, which, I mean, why not? Of course. I unfortunately had a hand that would storm off and allow my combo to work. Yeah, you say unfortunately there, Drew. I mean, come on.
Unfortunately
for your opponent.
Yeah.
I tend to forget blue has player interactions on my turn, aka counter spells.
How do you forget that?
This being a thing, when I get heavily involved with my combos, I get excited and start storming my cards very fast and start resolving my abilities without asking if there's a response. Yeah, I'm very like I'm like, okay, well slow down because I might have some responses here.
Yeah, I have 12 open blue mana.
Yeah. While doing this, I have an opponent who is new to Magic that at the end of the game, after I had stormed off with several artifacts, bouncing them again and playing them again and repeating until I had over 100 life and used the reservoir to execute my opponent. All he could say to that was there were too many spells being cast to know which spell to counter. That's a feels bad for the opponent. Of course, my opponent was super chill, and even though he was new to the game, he had just about as much fun watching the Storm deck pop off as I did casting it. This deck led to many of my favorite moments in MTG. Thanks for reading these. It's fun hearing them on the podcast. Great. I'm glad you enjoy hearing them on the podcast, Drew. Keep sending them in, buddy. That actually brings up some interesting things. I mean, I remember when I was first playing, and like I went, Drew, if you were going off like that, I probably would have just been overwhelmed. Like I would have been overwhelmed and like, what is this guy doing? Because I remember when I got into the game was around the same time with Kaladesh Standard, and I remember my opponent. I played somebody who was playing the same deck with Joyra.
Yeah.
So they were playing with Joyra. I had no clue what was going on, and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
I was playing mono.
I understand some of these words.
I was playing mono red goblin, so I could do nothing. I couldn't do a thing.
Yeah, he didn't have lightning bolt.
I'm just like, okay, that's cool. You're drawing how many cards now? What is that? Joyra? What does that do? So anytime I get to draw. Okay, cool. You have how much life? You have 75 life? Okay, what are you going to do with that? Oh, you're dead. Well, how am I dead? See, this card, since I have that much life, I can pay it and then just kill you.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I have a goblin chain whirler.
Thanks, Dominaria.
Oh, dude, I can relate really good to this story. This was not me because I remember playing against this deck and I remember who I played against it with. And it was not you, Drew, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I was so overwhelmed because I'm like, I have no idea. I was in learning mode. The first time I played, I was actually playing against one of the top decks in Standard at the time.
Yeah.
I had I lost on turn 2. I'm like, what in the world does this, what does this
what
do?
deck was he playing?
Well, it was, you had Heart of Kieran, you had Goblin Chain Whirler, you had Chandra Torch of Defiance.
Oh, it's just mono red.
Was it mono? I think it actually was.
Yeah.
Because it had the Phoenix.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This was mono red.
Was it mono red?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I don't even want to say tempo. I'm like, it was a mid-range list, but it would just destroy you.
Oh, yeah, and it destroyed me.
Yeah, it was so good.
It destroyed me.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was literally my first time playing the game.
Yeah.
First time, I'm like, okay. And so me, when I play Magic, or just really normally any competitive card game where I'm playing against somebody, they play a card. Okay, what does that card do?
Yeah.
What does that card do? What does that card do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and me when I play my cards, because I love playing it, I'm like, okay, Goblin Chain Whirler. Okay, so when Goblin Chain Whirler enters the battlefield, yeah, I read the whole card, and my opponent, bless my opponents during that time. They're like, they're probably thinking to themselves, dude, I know exactly what all of these cards do. You don't have to be telling me, but my opponents are all good sports, and I thought I was a good sport, even though it got destroyed. But I won once. I won one time, and that was enjoyable. For new players, I love having new players play these games and then just watching them, right? And so, Drew, I kind of got the feeling reading this story that your opponent probably was having a good time. It sounds like they kind of were, like, seeing you kind of have fun with your deck and then go off, and it's that experience that we're bringing to these to new players.
I would definitely say I had fun that day.
Was that you? No way!
Yeah, it was.
No way! Was that really you?
It was. I started Kaladesh and I was playing Texas Control.
No.
Yeah, I had no idea what he was doing. I'm just like, and my friend. So my friend was also like, "Why didn't you counter those things?" I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I don't know when I can play. I'm like, if he's just too fast, do I get to not counter? I don't know.
Dude, no way.
I was playing Magic for like less than a month at this point.
Holy cow, we're both like, crying over it. Oh my word.
Yeah, it was
dude, I had no idea that was you.
Yeah. So,
oh my word.
So all right. Drew messages me and he's like, "Hey, I have a story I can send to you guys about some beginner getting
shellacked,
just pwned by this artifacts deck I had in Kaladesh." I'm like, all right, let me read it first, because I was just like, leave my name out of it. That's what I told him. I'm like, leave my name out of it.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
I had no idea.
yeah, Dan. That was one of my first games where I was like,
so we were both
crickets.
We have
crickets.
Both. So we've both been on the same side of this deck.
Yeah. Joyra was not out at this time.
Oh, this was
Kaladesh. This was Kaladesh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this wasn't Dominaria standard.
Yeah, this was as soon as Kaladesh was out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So then when Dominaria came out, then that was
a little over a year later.
Wow.
So it was a year and a half.
I'm just saying for the deck.
Yeah. It was still a thing.
Word.
Yeah.
So Joyra has the ability where whenever you cast a historic card, which artifacts are historic, you get to draw a card. So on a deck that is all artifacts, you cast a bunch of artifacts and you draw more cards.
And then the paradoxical outcome as well. On top of that, to bounce a thing, draw cards, replay them again.
Yep.
Yeah, so many of those cards came out in Kaladesh, and it was just like, all right, this is fine.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect place to end the episode.
And on that note,
where can people find you on the internet, Jim?
All right, you guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jim Morgan, HNH.
And you can find me on Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell and on Twitter at _DG Campbell. And you can find Hobbies and Happiness on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can find us on pretty much every social media channel and platform. And with that, I think that was an awesome episode, Jim. That was awesome. I hope we have more stories like that just totally come out of nowhere. And thanks a lot for being here, and we'll catch everybody in the next episode.
It was a blast.
All right, see everybody.